Hello. So, I've taken quite a long time off from doing any videos, but Holy Spirit has just really impressed upon my heart that I need to start getting back into it and just use the voice that He's given to me so that it can bless others and just share. I'm an introvert, and so I'm pretty content reading and studying and learning and just being with my kitty, or I love having interaction with friends and doing going on adventures and stuff, but I don't necessarily feel the need to talk all the time or call people on the phone. I'm really not a fan of phone calls too much, unless it's someone that I'm super super close to, I suppose, and then they're nice. But so all that to say that I don't necessarily feel a need to constantly be talking or interacting or sharing what I'm learning. But what I am learning, part of that is that it's important to share. And so this is a format that I'm going to use to share not only my voice, which people continuously tell me that it's really soothing and peaceful. So I want to share that with you all. And I also think that I get to take this opportunity to share what I'm learning as well. So I can kind of kill almost three birds with one stone. I don't like that phrase anymore. I just killed a bug and I felt so sad afterwards. So I don't know why we have a phrase of killing birds with stones, so I'm gonna scratch that out. Anyways, but I'm just gonna make a longer video this time too, and that way, if you all are using this for relaxation or for if you are battling insomnia, which I might talk about that a little bit later too, we'll just see how it goes, but that this video can be long enough that you can fall asleep. Hopefully it helps you to fall asleep quicker, but a typical sleep cycle is, I'm so full of random stuff, so there's not really a plan or I'm planning on reading from a few different, a periodical and then a book and then some poetry, but I'll probably throw in random stuff along the way too, and the whole purpose is to help soothe you with my voice. So as long as I'm just talking and whatever, I feel maybe it doesn't matter too much the content, although I'm usually not, like I said, don't feel the need to talk all the time, so my words I hope are not, I'll use that word superfluous. Yeah, hopefully there's benefit even if I'm doing random tidbits of information as they pop into my mind. But yeah, so insomnia, I might talk about that a little bit later, but the sleep cycle, generally the sleep cycle is about 90 minutes, so an hour and a half. And there's actually, when I was struggling with insomnia when I was in the Navy, I'm a Navy veteran, I think I've mentioned that once before, but when I was in the Navy, I had the worst trouble with sleeping for the entire 6 years that I was in, and then after that too, my sleep has been really, really good the past week. It's been amazing. Oh my gosh, I've been getting such good sleep. But so I'm so thankful for that. But I had really bad sleep problems, and so when I did, I was researching, of course, to figure out how can I improve my sleep, what can I do to fall asleep quicker, to stay asleep, what are different, they call it sleep hygiene, techniques or tactics. So I just wanted a strategy, because I was getting about 4 hours of sleep a night on average, which, that was so bad. But one of the things that really helped me and was really fascinating too was downloading a sleep app on my phone, and I don't remember what it was called. I know it was like kind of black and darker blue color. But I can't remember the exact name because there's several different ones. But this one, you would just turn it on at night, and you would say like what time you wanted like to wake up, but like the absolute latest that you could wake up. So then it would, and you set it on your like nightstand. You didn't have to have it right by your bed, which I just read something that having all those like electromagnetic waves from the phone like right by your head while you're sleeping all night, it's not good. But you put it on your nightstand, or even like you can put it on the foot of your bed. I think it's just tracking movement, because in different sleep cycles, or in different like depths of sleep, because we have like light sleep, we have deep sleep, and we have REM sleep, which is the rapid eye movement when people are dreaming. And actually, I'll tell my story later, but so those are the three different kinds of sleep. And so the sleep app tracks which stage of sleep that you're in, and then you can look and see like how long were you in deep sleep, how long were you in REM sleep, how long were you in light sleep. And that's like obviously the one where you're like more like moving around and stuff. And if you hear a noise in light sleep, you're prone to wake up, versus if there's like a loud noise and you're in deep sleep or REM, then you might not wake up as easily because you actually more sleep, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, anyways, all that to say, like for this, the purpose of me doing readings is to help people that are struggling with sleep. So hopefully you'll fall asleep quicker. And then yeah, like if you are asleep and you're just still listening to this and I'm like droning on and on and on and on. It feels like I've talked a long time and it's only been 7 minutes. But yeah, then hopefully you at least get through like a whole entire sleep cycle. That's an hour and a half. I don't know if I'll read to you guys for an hour and a half. But anyways, hopefully at least gets you into deep sleep, so that when I stop, you're already asleep. So that's my like main priority. And then just to share knowledge. So if you take longer to fall asleep, then I guess you get to learn more from what I'm reading. So lucky you. So I'm an LMT, which is a licensed massage therapist. Oh, that was loud. But anyways, so I just got my license in January. I went to school and got my training and stuff last year. And it's something that I absolutely love to do. I really enjoyed giving massages like when I was a kid, 16, 17, 18, and my church youth group, we would go on like really long trips. So I lived in Southern Illinois at the time, and we would take like a trip to Mexico. We did it twice, and we would drive from Southern Illinois through, I don't even know, maybe probably through like Missouri, then Kansas and Arkansas, or anyways, Texas. We ended up going through Texas and then to Mexico. And on those long trips, or we did one from like Southern Illinois to DC, I think just once maybe, but like 18-hour trips or 2-day trips. And so my good friends and I, that I was in high school at the time, we would like trade hand massages and neck massages and stuff. And of course it really feels great to have a hand massage. Oh my goodness, my friends were really good at that, because like you can think, oh, there's only so much you can do, but there's a lot of nerves in the hands, in our extremities, a lot of nerves in our fingertips, and then a lot of nerves in our feet and our toes, and then of course in our head and our ears. They're just like highly concentrated there. And so yeah, like, man, it felt so good. But it also was really cool to give massages, because I like to give, and physical touch is my love language, my biggest one. There's 5, Yeah, this is so random. I'm just gonna keep on talking though. But yeah, there's like 5 different love languages supposedly. Like there might be more, who knows? But um, this book by Gary Chapman, and it's called the 5 Love Languages, and he has a few other books that are like follow-ons from that. But in the 5 Love Languages, he talks about how people receive love differently. They feel loved in different ways, and then people show love in different ways too. And so the top 5 are like the ones that he talks about in his book are acts of service. So like if someone will like clean your car for you, or vacuum the house, or do the dishes, or whatever, like help you change your oil or something on your car, different things like that. um, that translates to love for some people. Like it's how people show love sometimes, but also sometimes it's how people like feel loved. And then there's gifts. So a lot of times if people have gifts as their love language, it doesn't have to be like a huge gift. It could just be like, I don't know, you saw like their favorite candy bar at the store and you bought it for them and gave it to them, and they're like, oh my gosh, you love me so much. Or if someone's constantly like giving you things, it's not, if people don't really have that specific love language, a lot of times it doesn't necessarily like translate when someone's doing it for them. So like acts of service, if your love language, mine is not acts of service, that's my lowest one. So like I'll appreciate it and stuff, but sometimes you can like, or gifts, if like someone keeps on giving you gifts and that's not your love language, I feel like sometimes it might be like people might get suspicious or something, or be like, why are you always giving me stuff? So if that's you, if you happen to know someone who's like always giving you like little things or whatever, and you're like, I don't need this, why give me this? Maybe just think about like, maybe that's the way they're showing me that they love me. Because if it doesn't translate to you, then it won't like compute. Like I feel I kind of like equate it to like a currency exchange. If their currency is like pesos and ours is the yuan, and they try to constantly giving you pesos, but you can't use pesos because your currency is a yuan. So sometimes there's like an exchange thing where it's like they're giving, but it's not computing. So that can happen sometimes, but so actually I'm going from least. Acts of service is my least, and then gifts is my second lowest, and then I would say probably words of affirmation is my next. So it's like in the middle, because compliments are nice, but I'm kind of one of those people where I'm like, yeah, actions speak louder than words. And so for me personally, like, if someone's, well, the words of affirmation love language looks like someone's complimenting you, or they're like encouraging you, they're using their words to show that they love you. And that's like a really huge one. Like you can see that with people sometimes. I feel like, I don't know if it's my own personal experience or if it's just culturally, like a lot of times I feel like people in our culture don't know how to give compliments. And so that's something that I actually practice, even just with strangers. Like I feel like we have so much power. There's a proverb that says the power of life and death is in our tongue. And so that means like what we say, not like literally in our tongue, but in the words that we say. And so we have the power of life by speaking what we're saying to people or about people, even if they're not there. If we're speaking about them and we're speaking blessings, speaking positive things about them, that produces life. But the opposite is also true. Like if we're speaking negatively to somebody, directly to someone, or if we're being harsh with our words, or even if we're gossiping and talking about somebody when they're not present, which, well, not cool, but that produces death. And so, so I'd want to practice speaking life and using my words and knowing that, like, Like last night, for instance, I went to Kohl's and God had told me that there's going to be someone there that he wanted me to talk to. I happened to be the girl that was working at the Sephora because my birthday is in August. Just had a birthday, August 18th, and so I went to go get like my Sephora gift because they do a gift in your birthday month, and so I was there, and then God was like, "That's the one you're supposed to talk to," and I was like, "Okay." So I was talking to her and stuff, and it was probably only like a 5-minute interaction, which, you know, for like a stranger, that's kind of a long time, right? Especially if someone's at their work. But really short, and actually I want to say within like a minute or two, she was already like thanking me for talking to her and sharing the download that I had for her. And she just said she felt so encouraged and she felt like re-energized and rejuvenated and inspired. And I think that's so cool, just because for me, I was being obedient to the Spirit, what the Spirit was telling me to do, but it didn't seem like I had like earth-shattering information for her. It wasn't like I was, I don't know, for me it didn't, I mean, I had a word to release to her and I did it, but for her receiving it, she was receiving it and it was like inspiring her, it was encouraging her, it was just helping her like mindset to be clear again. And so I just love that the power of words that we have, the power of life in our tongue. So yeah, that as a love language can be very, very powerful for people. They even say too, like there have been studies that if someone has 2 different plants, and to like the one plant they're speaking all these negative words and cursing and even just like the harshness that comes out. They've done studies like on purpose, like whatever words they might say that are like negative and ugly and mean, and that plant will like shrivel up and die. And then they'll speak to the other plant, they'll speak words of kindness and love and affirming words, and that plant will thrive. So it's crazy fascinating, I think, that the power that we have with our words. You can see it, life or death. And if a plant responds to that, just think, as humans, we take in, right, so much. There's ways to have boundaries, and there's ways to be able to protect ourselves from taking in what we're not supposed to take in. And I can do another video on that if you would like. Put down in the comments if you'd like me to talk about that. But it just goes to show that what we're speaking can shrivel people up. Honestly, I'm sure probably everyone's experienced that, where someone said something and you felt like small, or you felt like depleted, or like you wanted to like hide yourself and cover up, or like not a good feeling, right? A lot of people use shame in their words, which is so damaging, right? But I know you probably have hopefully experienced as well, whether it's like a teacher, another like little kid on the playground, or hopefully like one of your friends or a parent or grandparent or your spouse, or even just maybe a random stranger like me when I do this, just speaking a compliment to you. It could just be as simple as like, wow, you've got amazing skin, or hey, I love your jacket, that's like super cute, or wow, thank you so much for hearing me, I really appreciate how good of a listener that you are. Just these kind of compliments, or you are really, really diligent and you're such a hard worker, and I really respect that. So there are examples of speaking words of life, and if someone said any of these things to you, like, man, you're working really hard, and I notice it, like how, like that feeling, right, how that feels, and it feels like to me that's how it feels. It feels like there's like air being kind of released into me, that I can breathe deeper, you know. And there's a little bit of peace that's transmitted with some words, versus like how it feels if someone says something negative, even like cussing people out. Like, you know, I have neighbors and I can hear them cussing each other out, and even I'm not the recipient of it, but I still want to go like, oh, it hurts to hear that, because it's not just the words, but it's the energy behind the words, it's the emotions behind the words. So that's why when we say like our cats or our dogs don't necessarily know English, they know some words, they're smart, animals are smart, but they don't necessarily know all English, but they can feel, right, the energy behind words, and the emotions behind words. That's like our heart energy. So anyways, that's a long spiel on words of affirmation. But so there's acts of service as a love language, there's gifts as a love language, and then words of affirmation as a love language. I won't keep on saying and talking on this one because this one seems really important right now. But so sometimes it can feel like if there's not like a relationship there or a solid basis, or if words of affirmation is not your love language, like I'll just make up a scenario. Let's say your love language is, for me, this is mine, quality of time, like spending quality time with people. And let's say your friends is not quality time, or your parents or your spouse is not quality time, so they don't really feel like hanging out for hours or talking or whatever. That to them doesn't translate as love, and so they don't do it. But let's say theirs is like super high words of affirmation, so they're always giving you compliments, always saying nice things to you, whatever. But if that's not yours and quality time is yours, and they're not like meeting that, then a lot of times words of affirmation can sound fake, and it's like not received well because it just sounds like lip service. So that can be an issue with this love language if it's not yours or if it's someone else's. But let's say like if you are spending quality time with that person, like and then they're saying the words of affirmation and stuff, then a lot of times that will translate more if their love language need is being met versus if it's not being met and then they're just being bombarded with. And it can work with gifts too, gifts or like acts of service. I don't know if it's, I've never really researched it, if there's like a gender thing with this, like where like more males love language is acts of service. It's possible because usually a lot of times guys like to do things for people to help, and so maybe sometimes they're like, man, I'm showing you this, showing my significant other that I love them so much, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and then your significant other is like not feeling loved because that's not their love language. That could be, that's a huge relational thing that occurs, where the one thinks that they're showing love and it's not being received, or the person's not appreciative and the other person's like, you're not spending time with me, like, do you love me? Well, like, of course I love you, didn't you see all the things that I did for you? And so this is a that goes down a whole nother rabbit trail of like, that one's, it is not necessarily gender based, but a lot of times it can be with love languages too, and then communication and the way that people receive love and the way that people show love. And so anyways, just things to think about in your relationships. And we'll get on to the next one. So we have acts of service, gifts, words of affirmation. The next one, which I mentioned, quality time, is my second top love language, and that just looks like, for me, quality time is not going to see a movie because you're like not talking to each other. It could be like maybe watching a movie at home. I'm not a big movie fan or a TV fan. Like, I don't even own a TV. I don't do streaming services except for like K dramas because I'm a Korean linguist, and so that to me is like a beneficial use of my time, and it's fun too if I just want to chill. Um, but usually I chill doing different things. But anyways, all that to say, quality time for people. You just ask your friend if you want to like build a relationship. It's good to like ask them like, hey, do you know what your love languages are? If they don't, there's tests that you can do online, or you can buy the book and read it and figure out what yours are. It's important to know what yours are, but it's also important to know like the people that you want to have healthy, strong relationships with. This is a huge thing. And so quality time for me looks like maybe going on a hike, or it could literally just be like going to a park and reading a book together and talking about it, or um, cooking a meal together, or like literally like I had a boyfriend one time and we would go shopping together, grocery shopping, and that was like we had so much fun shopping, grocery shopping, or cooking meals together, or like yeah, we would go camping or go on hike, go to the beach, just random things, but like just spending time with the person doesn't have to be like expensive, doesn't have to be extravagant or anything like that. I actually prefer less. I prefer like simple with like out in the woods or in nature or something like that. But just being with that person and like being able to hear them talk what's on their mind, talk about ideas, talk about whatever philosophy, that to me translates as love. Um, and so if that's not yours, but you find out that the person that you want to like build a strong relationship, that is theirs, definitely highly recommend asking what their like favorite thing would be to do with you, and then just do it. Put your phone down. Obviously, like being on the phone while you're like trying to be quality time with them doesn't work. But yeah, and definitely too, like I feel like a lot of times when people are on their phones like with their kids and stuff, or even like I don't have any kids, I don't have a spouse yet or anything, but like my cat will literally she when she wants my attention and I'm on my phone, she'll like try to get my attention because she recognizes like she's not a human, but she's not stupid. She knows my attention's not on her, it's on this, and she's wanting my attention. So, um, yeah, quality time's huge. And then the last one, number 5, or my top one, is physical touch. So, it's not a sexual physical touch. It is just a loving touch, whether it's like someone holding your hand or putting their hand on your shoulder, or for me, like I love it when people play with my hair. I would literally like actually in college because I knew about this already, and so I think I asked with like my 2 best friends. I had 3 really good friends in college that I would hang out with because that's how I like to do things. Have like close friends. Not, I mean, I knew a lot of people, and keep in touch with some of them still, but my 3 closest friends when I was in college that we would do studying together and go hang out and eat meals together on a regular basis. I felt comfortable enough to say, hey, would you play with my hair? Or would you give me a back massage? Or would you give me a foot massage? And they were so sweet. They would, because they just knew that's my love language, and I was needing to receive love from them. We would spend quality time together. I think that's probably why we were so close, or why for me I felt like those relationships were closer. Because even though like we would literally have like our books laid out, and 2 of them I had similar classes with, like a couple of classes shared. But one of them we didn't have any classes similar, but she'd study her own stuff, I'd be studying my stuff, but we were together. And that even like equated to me as quality time. Because, you know, something interesting that I'm reading in my books, I'd be like, oh my gosh. And then we talk about it for like 5 minutes and then get back to our studies. But that like was quality time to me. And so I think I also then felt safe enough with them to be like, hey, I want someone to play with my hair or whatever. Because that's not a normal like you don't just ask a random person to play with your hair or to like give you a hug. On the note of hugs, like I remember when I was growing up too, my youth pastor would say that, and he studied like family systems and like a bunch of psychology stuff. I don't remember exactly what his PhD, Dr. Hal Hamilton, what his degree is in. But I remember one time he said something to the effect of like, a person needs 7 hugs a day for them to be at optimal health, emotional health. I think it's not just emotional health, because if you've ever had someone hug you and just like hold you, and it's not like a quick like 5-second hug, try it sometime with someone that you know and that you're comfortable with, that you just like say, let's like hug for 30 seconds. Literally 30 seconds doesn't seem like long at all, and it's not long, but when you're hugging it feels so long. And then a minute, try a minute. But there's like a study, I'd have to remember because I can't remember the exact amount of time, but after a certain amount of time, I want to say maybe a minute, it might be a whole minute, that each person that's hugging, their breathing comes into sync and their heart rates come into sync. And so actually it is like a deeper connection that's being made after a certain amount of time of that close physical touch of being hugged or held. And then you got to think about it too, like, so my mind goes to in NICU, when babies are premature, they're born premature, and they have to be in NICU or for whatever reason. And I don't think they used to do this a long time ago, but I vaguely remember this German, I think she might have been a German nun, kind of found out about it because she would go and hold the babies, but like not all of the babies because she couldn't. So she, like the ones that she held, the nurses would notice would recover or like get healthy quicker, and then the ones that weren't being held by her, because I don't think she picked and chose, just happened to be like this one she'd held, they would recover, they would get healthy, they would their vital signs would get better, their development, whatever, would increase. And so eventually after like her, this, I think she was German, and I have to research it again, but would hold these babies, and was just physical touch, skin to skin is important. So yeah, I mean, obviously we're close when you're hugging someone, unless you're like, no, anyways, but the skin to skin touch is like important. So holding the baby, you know, on your bare chest, so their skin is touching you, and that literally saves babies' lives. Literally saves their lives. Can be the difference between like life and death for them too. The voice, like our words, can be a difference between life and death, but also the physical touch. And so this is one that I see like, actually I have a lot of interaction with like Chinese and Korean and some like Japanese too, especially when I was living in Hawaii, because there's a lot of Asian, there's a huge Asian demographic there. And even though like when I was actually teaching, I taught at a language center, and there were Chinese instructors and Korean instructors. I don't think the Korean instructors so much did this, but the Chinese women, I think there was maybe like 3 men that were Chinese instructors, and the rest were women. It was probably like 20 women or something. And they would go and take walks like on a little break in between classes and stuff, and they'd hold arms, they'd link arms, hold hands, that sort of stuff. They were very like affectionate with each other, and I think that was so beautiful. And I have a good friend from that time who was a Chinese instructor, and she and I would go for walks And every once in a while we'd like link arms, and it just felt so nice, just to have that like human contact. And we were, I'm sure we like probably had long sleeves on or short sleeves or whatever, so it wasn't always skin to skin, but just having that closeness and that affection, everything just definitely translated. I felt loved, I felt cared for, I felt important, I felt valued. And so, yeah, physical touch is huge. That's one way. If it's not your love language and you don't understand it, but it is someone else's that you want to like be able to communicate love to them, that's one way you can do it. Like when you're walking, maybe you just walk next to each other and you never touch them because it doesn't occur to you because you don't care about love, the physical touch, except for maybe if it's your spouse, maybe like that could be an issue too. If it's your spouse's love language and it's not yours, and the only time that you really initiate any physical touch is to have sex with them, that becomes a huge, huge issue in marriages. I've never been married, but I've read a lot of books because I like learning, but also I feel like I want to have a very healthy marriage when I get married. And so it's wise to study and to learn and to read about relationships and how to do them. Oh. Whoops. Ugh. I'm resting my foot on my papasan and it like shifted. But so I'm gonna adjust this. So good thing you're mostly listening and not really having to watch me. Hopefully. But anyways, yeah, so to say that, like, if that is something that's going on in your marriage, that if physical touch is not your love language, and so you don't think about holding your partner's hand or rubbing their back or scratching their back or linking arms while you're walking or just giving a kiss on the cheek or on the forehead or whatever, except for when you guys are getting intimate, then a lot of times that can translate to that person feeling used. Because if their love language is physical touch and they're not getting it, except for when you guys are having sex, then yeah, there's a disconnect there. There can be a disconnect. And so they can feel like they're not loved by you because their love language is not being met, and then you're wanting physical touch, but it's like a taking sort of thing. So anyways, all that to say, like, physical touch, if that's yours, definitely communicate that to your partner in a way where it's like usually best to communicate not like you don't ever, but I would feel so valued, or I feel like if they do something, even if it's like once and you're like, oh my gosh, what just happened, really try to praise them in that moment. So if your love language is physical touch and they like put their hand on your shoulder while they're talking and you're like, oh, they love me, tell them that, like, I feel so loved when you do that. And that's probably going to shock them, because if it's not someone's love language, it doesn't like make any sense in their brain, right? But the more that you can positively reinforce something, or like if acts of service is your love language and your child like sweeps the kitchen floor and be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, that showed me that you love me. So if there's good ways to try to like encourage someone in using it, because like I said, not like the majority of the time, I would say probably partners, if you're really blessed, I pray for this. I pray that my partner's physical touch and quality time, because then we'll like it'll be easier to like show love and receive love. My parents, it's acts of service. Their top love language is acts of service, and so that was challenging because I just did the currency thing. The currency just didn't compute, didn't transfer. So anyways, there's good ways and healthy ways to, like, once you find out what yours are, to be able to communicate that. Like, I feel really loved, I feel really valued when you do this, or when you said this, or whatever. Or they can, or find out, read and try to like watch whoever it is and figure out like what theirs is, or you can ask them to. And that way, when they are showing love in a way that's not your main love language, you can actually like start to receive it as they're trying to communicate that they love me. Even if that's not my love language, I'm going to like learn to receive it as love. That way we can make people successful, right? We're in a relationship with someone, we want them to feel successful in the relationship. We want to feel successful in the relationship, like, so there's ways that we can help each other do that, and encourage, right? Use our words for life rather than beat them down. So anyways, that's a whole long spiel. I don't even know how I got into that. I might have gotten into it because I was talking about massage and being an LMT. Oh my gosh, wow, that was like a 30-minute spiel on that. But anyways, the goal is to help you like relax and sleep. So, yeah. So back to that. I'm an LMT now, and why I loved it so much as a kid, 16, 17, 18, being able to give, that to me felt like I was receiving love. When my friends would give me hand massages, I was receiving love. When they were massaging my head or playing with my hair, one of my friends, he would like braid my hair and stuff, and just, it was just fun, little kid stuff, you know. But I felt so loved. And then I was able to express and show my love for my friends by massaging their hands or giving them a neck massage or back massage. And so I think that now that I finally jumped in and did the massage therapy training, and I'm doing that now, it's so life-giving, because I love to like be nurturing and caring, and there's so much benefit from massage. I don't know if you've experienced massage. If you have and you've experienced amazing benefits, you can like put that in the comments too. Or if you never have had a massage before, maybe just read through if people have comments in there and see like there's so many benefits. I won't get into that right now because I do want to get to the reading. What I was going to do today was read through here. It's Massage and Bodywork, and this one's on glutes, which when I was in the military, actually I would go get a massage. Again, back to the love language, because my love language was physical touch, and I'm not married. I was not married, never been married. And I didn't really have like super close friends where their love language was physical touch. And so I was like feeling starved for love. And so my mom had a really good idea. She said, go get massages, you know, have that be your self-care. It's not extravagant, it's not frivolous. That's like something that you need. So go get a massage. And so it was kind of weird because for me, massage mostly had like in my mind, massage was for therapeutic purposes. And it still is, and it still can be. But what she was suggesting was to go and get massage and have that be like my physical, like my human contact, physical touch that I needed. Something that I think is so wrong in the US, because we don't really show a lot of physical affection past, you know, like little kid years. Something I really admired about the Asian culture. And I have friends who like lived in China or Taiwan or whatever, and it wasn't just the females that would walk arm in arm. Maybe even Thailand too, I'm sure, like Thailand or but like the men too were very affectionate, and they would link arms or hold hands, and it wasn't because they were homosexual. That's just they're very affectionate and show love and care to each other. And I think that's so beautiful and so important. And I feel like That's a huge thing that our culture is missing, is that physical touch, that loving touch, that healthy non-sexual touch. And so, yeah, if you're missing that, definitely massage is a way that you can receive that in a non-sexual way, right? But that physical connection with another human. And it definitely helped me. I think when I was in the military, I would do that. And it didn't necessarily translate as, translated as like care, right? Because that's the massage therapist's job. Me now, when I do it, it's care. I care about you as a human being. You are on my massage table for 60 minutes, and I get to take care of you. And so there is that like emotional energy, right, that's being translated or expressed or communicated through my hands, also through my heart when I massage. But that care for this person, because they are a living human being and they're valuable. You are a living human being and you are valuable. And so, I just think it's such a beautiful thing that I get to do, to communicate care and love, right, to a person, and to take care of their muscles. But there's more to massage than just working someone's muscles. There's so much more, but I'm getting thirsty, so I'm gonna open my, it's Fonte di Crudo, and it says pesca. That sounds like fish in Spanish, but it's Italian and it means peach, which is interesting. Bottled in Italia. Okay. I'm gonna pour it into my glass. Man, after talking for 45 minutes, my throat really got dry. I'm not used to talking that much. So oh, that's weird. All the fizzy bubbles got on my pad. My hair looks ridiculous right now because I just washed it and I used my conditioner. It's by Grown Alchemist. It's really good conditioner. But usually it helps my hair, like, it's called anti-frizz. And it's like, that doesn't look like anti-frizz to me. It's like super fuzzy. And my hair is really red on the bottom. But my hair's just gonna look dumb in this video, and that's okay. Oh well. I was thirsty. So I'm gonna get into the reading, and like I said, it's from Massage and Bodywork Magazine. This edition is on glutes, which when I was in the military, again, I had a lot of hip pain, like really bad hip pain and glute pain, because I was sitting so many hours a day. A lot of people think that in the military you're super active. We were not in my job. It was a very sedentary job. My body didn't like it because I was used to being active. I was like very athletic, did a lot of sports growing up, and then joined the military, and all of a sudden I'm like sitting for 12, actually I was sitting probably like 12, 13 hours a day, which is horrible. And so I started having issues in my hips and my glutes, and so I saw this and it's like amazing. And this is, like I said, I could read all day or do like just random things and not get bored. So this is something that I wanted to read, and then I decided I might as well just like read it and do a video. since I'm wanting to do more of these to help people with their relaxation. So it could be the most like boring topic to you. Who knows? That should be a good thing, because then you might fall asleep if you're wanting to. So I'm just gonna keep on reading the whole article. There's a few articles in here, and yeah, if you learn anything new, or if you're like amazed by something, just put that in the comment too, because it'll be fun to like hear. Yeah, if you've learned something that you'll take on or that's beneficial. If you want to put in the comments down below like what your love language is, or if that was helpful to you also, then that'd be cool too, because I just really like to know that this is benefiting people, right? So I'm gonna zoom in. Cool. And my head is really big. Okay. I'm gonna zoom in and I'm gonna read, and really take a deep breath in. And release. Another inhale. And release. And we'll do one more and just pause in between the inhale and the exhale, and try to make your exhale longer than your inhale. So inhale. And release. I did an extra one because it felt so good. I definitely needed to reset and recalibrate my breathing. That's another technique. If you're having struggles with sleeping or relaxing or falling asleep, you can do the breath work and do it until you fall asleep. It should help pretty fast. I don't know if you can feel the shift, but when we focus on our breathing and actually take the time to breathe well and fill our lungs with air and then hold it and then release it slowly, that actually helps to reset and get out of our sympathetic nervous system, which is our what can be fight, flight, or freeze, and get back into our parasympathetic nervous system, which is a much calmer state of being. And yeah, so now I'm going to read glutes. Ask clients if their last massage therapist worked on their gluteal region, and you might be surprised to hear some of their answers. I asked, but they said they couldn't. They made me sign a release form before they would work my glutes. I was too uncomfortable to ask. The response from massage therapists? When I was in school, my instructors spent very little time on this muscle group. That was mine. I'm not really comfortable working this area on clients. Why not? It's a muscle. Several muscles, but still. They won't allow me to work on the glutes at my spa job. Well, that's dumb, because massage usually is full body. So, why are we ignoring these important muscles? These days, a full body massage treatment is not always full body. Certain body segments have become part of the untouchables that are intentionally left out of massage and bodywork sessions altogether. That unfortunate growing list includes the abdominals, the pectorals, and most notably, the glutes. The problem is increasingly exemplified in some franchise spas that are trying to protect themselves from the lawsuits of a sometimes litigious clientele, and in schools that aren't always prepared to teach their students the importance of gluteal work. The trend seems to be growing, and experts are concerned about its impact on the profession. Muted glutes. The three gluteal muscles, gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, and gluteus minimus, are part of the structure that literally holds the legs to the pelvis. These muscles are critical to most movements we make throughout the day. Yet, sexual undercurrents, ill-prepared therapists, and litigiousness sometimes keeps them from being addressed in a massage therapy session. And that, experts say, is a mistake. The gluteal muscles are extremely important and are critical players in posture, gait, and special movements, says massage educator and therapist Clint Chandler. This muscle group stabilizes the pelvis and spine and creates powerful movements at the hip joint. He says the inability to work these gluteal muscles, especially as we face an aging baby boomer clientele, limits one's effectiveness to practice. Some spas refuse to allow work on a client's glutes, while others will do so once a release is signed by the client. These restrictions of no-touch zones are not just for modesty or sexual gray areas, but more and more are also being applied to important clinical areas because of lack of training in techniques and safety in such areas as the anterior neck, adductors, tissue next to the spine, the abdomen, and others, says Art Riggs, author, bodywork educator, and advanced rolfer. The combination of inflexible restrictions and lack of training is not only depriving the public of good work, but is now defining what the public and therapists consider appropriate techniques and is exacerbating this problem. I feel that neglecting to work on such an important area as the gluteals is a great disservice to our clients. I agree. I had lots of glute work done. It was essential for me to be able to get through all the hip pain that I had. Schools reacting out of fear. In addition to somatic omissions happening in spas, more and more massage graduates are reporting that their school's gluteal massage curriculum lacked in content and practice. Ours did. The fear has grown to the point that some schools don't allow gluteal work in their school clinics, while others cite student privacy as a reason for not covering gluteal work in their classrooms. Where are you going to learn to do it if you're not learning it in the classroom? All of which exacerbates trepidation about client boundaries. I have no idea why a school or clinic would avoid teaching students how to work this important muscle group, Chandler says. I can't imagine the rationale for such nonsense. They are doing a disservice to the profession, to students, and to potential clients. While she hopes it's a very limited experience, ABMP's Director of Education, Ann Williams, says she has heard rumors of schools that don't teach gluteal massage, and she finds it concerning. The entry-level analysis project determined that gluteal massage should be a part of core curriculum. I would encourage all entry-level programs to teach it. This way, they can ensure that their graduating students know how to discuss it with clients in a professional manner and how to drape and apply strokes in a way that preserves the client's modesty. Longtime educator Eric Dalton says when he feels massage therapists should indeed err on the side of caution when performing gluteal work because of possible misconstrued intentions and interactions. These somatic omissions are affecting the profession on an even deeper level. What concerns me most is the absence of classes that teach adequate biomechanical and neurological assessment skills. Gluteal function is complex, multifaceted, and often not well understood. Therapists need to consider the dynamic function of the gluteals as they relate to the entire body during normal, everyday movements, not from an isolated, compartmentalized viewpoint. Hip musculature requires restoration of proper length, strength, balance. Random deep tissue or assisted stretching techniques may be detrimental to the therapeutic outcome if the gluteals are already neurologically inhibited. I believe there is a need to focus on teaching better functional biomechanics and improving our hip assessment skills. It is pretty clear this trend is coming out of a fear-based model of trying to avoid issues of inappropriate touch, says author and clinical massage educator Whitney Lowe. However, it sure seems that if appropriate ethics and responsible practices are adhered to, this is much less of an issue. We are in a time now where massage has gone mainstream, and many people are coming to get massage who have never had this type of touch therapy before. Many of them may be uncomfortable with work on the gluteal region because of perceived associations with the former shadow side of massage. It seems like the only way to really address this issue is to talk about it a great deal more and also have more open discussion with clients. Ultimately, the conversation should come back to what we're denying the client as a result of these choices. Are we following best practices when we ignore this entire area of the client's body? And from a more global professional practice perspective, are we doing a disservice to the future of the massage profession by diminishing the potential of the work today? Let's face it, massage is no longer counterculture. It's big business. I suppose restrictions on gluteal work could be ignored as just being a somewhat silly practice, but it is growing, and I fear it's symbolic of other possible trends to sacrifice high-quality bodywork in deference to corporate interest. We aren't just depriving clients of a good work when we skip important areas. We may be upsetting an integrated balance in the body and causing harm instead. An important factor in this equation of best practices is the therapist's confidence, Lowe says. If the therapist comes across as not being confident and being uncomfortable with the idea of working the gluteal region, that discomfort will be translated to the client and could lead them to also not feeling confident with the therapist's work. New therapists are encouraged to practice their conversations, techniques, and draping protocols with family, friends, and colleagues. The more comfortable you are in delivering gluteal work, the better the outcome. And the payoff is worth it. As soon as you do good work in that area, even the clients who may have been skeptical have an immediate awareness of how beneficial glute work is. Say it's ABMP's Manager Professional Development, Kristen Coverly, LMT. They feel the hypertonicity and imbalance as you're working the area, and new clients are often surprised by that because these are not always muscles that scream at you when they're tight. New clients may not know what's happening with their glutes until you work them and create that awareness. But once they know and understand, they want the work. She says it's also important to build and strengthen this awareness by talking about with clients after the session as well. She asks clients, did you feel the tight muscles in your glutes when I worked on them? Most of the time they're like, yes, I didn't know I was tight there. That happens with me, and yeah, a lot of times the tightness in the glutes from what I've experienced with my clients is like mine was from sitting a lot. And this one doesn't talk about the piriformis, it just talks about gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, and gluteus minimus. But the piriformis also is like a lateral muscle that runs deep. I think it's maybe from the sacrum or the coccyx to, I'm not sure exactly where on the hip bone, but I don't think it inserts on the femur. I think it's the hip bone, but and that one's a lot of times inflamed and tight and stuff from people sitting too long. So, what's the answer? I do empathize with the difficult position of spas and individual therapists to protect themselves from a litigious public, Riggs says. But the answer is not to tie therapists' hands behind their backs with no-fly zones. I'll grant that for some, the gluteals are a private area, and we all have to be careful and sensitive to our clients' feelings and concerns. But the answer is not universal prohibition. It seems to me that it makes much more sense to simply ask clients if there are any areas they would like you to keep away from during a session, rather than automatically depriving them of quality work. Don't build roadblocks out of assumptions. Coverly concurs, always work the glutes, draped or undraped, every session. They're so important. I honestly feel like I wouldn't be giving a complete session and would actually be doing clients an injustice by giving a session without that work. So, the maximus, medius, and minimus anatomy of the glutes. I feel like I'm in the library. Okay, class. Here's the picture. The gluteal group is composed of 3 muscles: gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, and gluteus minimus. These muscles stabilize the thigh and pelvis at the hip joint. The gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the human body. And why would people not work it? This makes no sense to me whatsoever. It's the largest muscle in your body. And when you're doing massage, you're working the muscles, so it makes sense that you're going to work the gluteus maximus. It forms the contour of the buttock. It is superficial and covers much of the gluteus medius. The gluteus medius is deep to the gluteus maximus posteriorly and deep to the tensor fasciae latae anteriorly, but it is superficial laterally. So that means you can feel it better on the side, the lateral, right? Superficial, so you can palpate it better on the side, versus like, since it's deep to the gluteus maximus posteriorly, then you're going to be having to work through the gluteus maximus to get to the gluteus medius. You can still do it, you just have to go deep to be able to activate or to reach the gluteus medius in the posterior, but laterally you can reach it because it's superficial. It covers most of the gluteus minimus. The gluteus minimus is the deepest and smallest of the group. The attachments. Oh, this is great reading content. I hope you're falling asleep now. The attachments for gluteus maximus, the origin, or the proximal attachment. Proximal means like proximal to the center line of your body. So proximal is closest, and then lateral is when you get further away from the center line. So proximal attachment is the posterior iliac crest, which is like the top of the hip bone. It's called iliac crest. And then posterolateral sacrum and coccyx. Basically, sacrum and coccyx is the origin. So it's got a long origin. It's attached all the way up there from the iliac crest, sacrum, and then down to the coccyx. And the insertion, the distal, I was wrong, it's proximal and distal, not lateral. Proximal and distal attachment is the iliotibial band, your IT band, and the gluteal tuberosity of the femur. The gluteus medius and gluteus minimus origin, the proximal attachment, so closest to the spine, is the external ilium. The ilium is also still part of the hip bone. It's just a different position on the hip bone. And then the insertion, the distal attachment, is the greater trochanter of the femur. So both the femurs, it's just different parts of where they're inserting on the femur. So when the gluteal tuberosity of the femur with the IT band, you can see that in picture 1. And then picture 2 and 3, gluteus medius and gluteus minimus. Their insertion is the greater trochanter, which is like the part that you can feel from your femur on your side. Well, some people can feel it. Actions. All of the actions listed for the gluteal muscles occur at the hip joint. The standard actions: insertion, distal attachment moving toward origin, proximal attachment, move the thigh at the hip joint. So all the actions of the glutes move the thigh at the hip joint. The reverse actions: origin, proximal attachment, moving toward insertion, distal attachment, move the pelvis at the hip joint. Those just sound like words to me. I have to kind of like do it with my body to actually understand what they're saying. But the standard action is from insertion. So that's the distal attachment, right? So the insertion we said is on like the hip bone, or the femur, moving towards the origin or proximal. So it moves the thigh. Let's say like this. I don't think that's right. I don't know. Tighten your butt and see what happens to your leg. Obviously, I'm one of those therapists that needs to study this a little bit more. Okay, this is much more English now. Gluteus maximus extends the thigh. Oh, okay, I know what that means. The gluteus maximus laterally rotates. I was right. It laterally rotates the thigh. And it abducts. AB means away. So it moves the thigh away from the center line. And adducts the thigh. So add means like you're bringing it closer. So if your leg is like right here, and your body line is like my face, abduct is going like this, and then adduct is going like that towards the center line of the body. And it posteriorly tilts the pelvis. So it tilts the pelvis this way. Yeah. So if you squeeze your glutes together, you'll notice that you're, if you're doing this, I had to do this as an exercise when I had my hip problems in the military, from sitting too much. And because we'll get into that later, but anyways, I had one of the exercises that the PT had me doing was squeezing my glutes together, and it would push my hips forward like that. So posterior tilts the pelvis. It would just like tilt like that. Sure. My kitty cat is snoring. She's really, really cute. Oh my gosh. I love it when she snores. I have something in my nose. Look. Can you see? She's snoring. Oh, she's so cute. I love her so much. But I highly doubt you were able to hear that because it's not really that loud. I can hear it, but it's so cute. She's so sweet. My little baby. Okay. So I'm going to continue reading. The actions of the gluteus medius and gluteus minimus they abduct the thigh. So again, they move the thigh out like this. It's not a forward movement. It's a, we'll say, here's your thigh. It's not doing this, it's doing this. So if you do that movement with your leg coming out this way and your foot facing forward, the gluteus minimus and medius are going to be doing this movement to your thigh. And then extend the thigh. So then that's like if you are lifting it up, basically. So if you're straight and then doing this, that's a movement of the gluteus medius and gluteus minimus. And flexing the thigh too. This is anterior fibers. So the front part, like the front fibers of the gluteus minimus and gluteus medius, flex the thigh. So I mean, like bringing it back like this towards the rear. That's flexing. So your muscles get thicker in the thigh. And then extending will be coming like this way. And medial rotates the thigh. Medially rotates. So you actually do this with your leg in the socket there. And that's the action of the gluteus medius and gluteus minimus. And then depresses the same side pelvis. Posteriorly tilts the pelvis, like what the gluteus maximus does, and then anteriorly tilts the pelvis. So that's something different. The maximus can't do that because these ones are more lateral. Well, they are lateral. See, the maximus is just posterior. The insertion is kind of lateral in the IT band, but the medius and the minimus are lateral as well, and so that's why they can tilt the pelvis anteriorly. So you can do it, like if you want to figure out what your glutes are doing, just like stand and then put your pelvis forward. This is so funny because this is just a like video to help you sleep, but so you're learning a lot of stuff if you're actually listening, but if you're asleep, then good. But sure. So you can put your hand here and then tilt your pelvis this way, tilt your pelvis that way, and you should be able to feel movement in your muscles, tightening in your muscles. But this is where it's inserting. Well, it's inserting down here on the femur. It's down in here, but you should be able to feel. And it says only the anterior muscles do medial rotation. So anyways, if you want to learn more about what your glute actions are, that's a way to do it. Like move your body around, move your legs around, and figure out which muscles are working. This is also what we do when we're doing massage, to try to palpate and figure out what's well, ideally you can figure out if they're activating or if they're not, if they're tight, if one is like working harder than the other. So palpation, the gluteus maximus. It's really easy to palpate the gluteus maximus because the butt cheek, what we usually think of is the butt cheek. But this one's cool. The client is prone. Place your palpating finger pads lateral to the sacrum. Lateral. Place your resistance hand on the distal posterior thigh if resistance is needed. Ask the client to laterally rotate the thigh at the hip joint. So you're wanting them to go like this. Let's say my wrist is the hip joint. You want them to do this with their leg on the table. They're laying flat. And then extend the laterally rotated thigh. Feel for the contraction of the gluteus maximus. Resistance can be added if necessary. With the muscle contracted, strum. That means go across like this, strum, like a guitar. Play the glutes, play the guitar. Strum perpendicular to the fibers to discern the borders of the muscle. Right, so you're not strumming along with the muscle, you're strumming kind of like against the grain. Kind of like how when you have chicken meat and you want to cut it, and you cut it perpendicular so that it's softer. I think that's what I've been told anyways. I think it breaks up the fibers of the meat, the muscle, so that it's more tender. Continue palpating the gluteus maximus laterally and inferiorly, distally to its insertion by strumming perpendicular to its fibers. So just have a picture there, and you can see there's the muscle, and perpendicular is the arrow. So yeah, you're going against the grain, against the fibers of the muscle. Palpation for gluteus medius and gluteus minimus. The client is side lying. I'll show the picture first. Okay. That's palpation. The client is side lying. Place your palpating finger pads just distal, right, further away, to the middle of the iliac crest. So in the center of the hip bone area. Between the iliac crest and the greater trochanter of the femur. Place your resistance hand on the lateral surface of the distal thigh if resistance is needed. Palpating just distal to the medial or to the middle of the iliac crest, ask the client to abduct the thigh at the hip joint. So you're wanting them to do this. They're laying sideways. You're wanting them to do like this with their leg. And that's going to be activating the gluteus medius and gluteus minimus. Feel the contraction of the middle fibers of the gluteus medius. If desired, resistance can be added to the client's thigh abduction with the resistance hand. So sometimes when you're massaging, it's kind of like, if you're wanting to add resistance, that'll make the muscle work harder. And sometimes in massage, having the person activate their muscles while you're working with them can actually either like get the muscles to like activate and to fire more than they have been if they've kind of been like, sleeping's not the correct term, but if they're not activating. But also what can happen too is if you are doing resistance and the muscle's having to work harder to do its action, it's going to contract more. I don't know all the medical terms because I've not studied this scientifically yet, but I've had it done a lot with my personal massages, and then just learning for like different techniques for other muscles. If you're making that muscle work harder, and then once it releases, a lot of times it will release further than what it was before. So let's say it's like a little bit tight. It's like, say it's like this. It needs to be relaxed, but it's not. It's like this, okay? And when you're having it work, it might normally just do this, but if you're putting resistance on it, then it will have to like work harder to move. And then after it's worked harder to move, a lot of times it will relax further. Maybe not relax all the way, but it might relax further, and you can do it again, have it tighten, and then release. And a lot of times that will release the tension in the muscle that's like still kind of like halfway activated or like not fully. It can have different benefits depending on what's going on in the muscle. I am not an expert, I'm learning. But it's always good to learn, and I've noticed it when people have done it with me. You even notice, actually, this is another sleep hygiene tip that they say you can do to help you relax your body, right? So if your body's like having trouble relaxing and you're trying to sleep, sometimes it can be like that. Like, just as an example, like if you're wanting your body to be like relaxed, this is a relaxed state, and your body's like this, and it won't relax, sometimes tensing it and then releasing that tension will allow it to go to its normal relaxed state. So what you can do if you're having trouble sleeping sometimes is focus on maybe your hands first, okay? And tighten your hands and squeeze your hands as tight as you can. As tight as you can, as tight as you can, and then relax them. And then focus on your arms and squeeze your arms as tight as you can, as tight as you can, as tight as you can, and then relax it. And then focus on your like jawline. And relax your jaw. You can work all the way through. A lot of times people work from the feet up. I find for me it's hard to like focus on like tightening my feet first, because I don't know, but you can start wherever. But if you tighten up your muscles and squeeze them as tight as you can do it 1, 2, 3 times. And after each release, the tension should leave the muscles and your body should be able to get into a more relaxed state than it was previously. And a lot of times that can help people to sleep better. Once their muscles and their body is in a relaxed state, then you can fall asleep. So, but back to this article. Strumming the muscle perpendicular to the fibers, again palpating the middle fibers of the gluteus medius distally toward the greater trochanter. To palpate the anterior fibers, anterior means the front portion, right? Anterior is front, posterior is rear. Anterior, posterior. To palpate the anterior fibers, place your palpating hand immediately distal and posterior to the anterior superior iliac spine, or what we call ACES. So anterior superior iliac spine is like the front top part of the hip bone. Called anterior superior iliac spine. And you're going to place your palpating hand distal and posterior. So distal actually means distal this way. And then posterior, a little bit back like that. I'm not really sure why I'm explaining all these words and like how you'd be doing this. I don't know if anyone else is a massage therapist, but if you are, maybe you already know how to do all this and you can teach me. And if you're not a massage therapist and you're not going to be working on someone's glutes, then you really don't need to know. But anyways, ask the client to gently flex and medially rotate the thigh at the hip joint. Feel for the contraction of the anterior fibers of the gluteus medius. Discerning the anterior fibers from the more superficial TFL is difficult. So normally the fascia, I guess, is more, we're able to feel that more, which makes sense. To palpate the posterior fibers, place your palpating hand over the posterior portion of the gluteus medius and ask the client to gently extend and laterally rotate the thigh at the hip joint. Feel for the contraction of the posterior fibers of the gluteus medius. So that's like back towards the gluteus maximus, but see the medius is under the gluteus maximus. So you've got to kind of work through the fibers of the gluteus maximus to feel the gluteus medius because it covers it up a little bit. Not entirely, because the gluteus maximus is mostly posterior and that comes and wraps around to the IT band, but it does cover a little bit of it. So you can see in here in this picture, they had the gluteus medius. So the gluteus maximus is here, and then the gluteus medius is this, like they said, ghosted in. So it's gluteus medius. You can see the maximus covers most of it on the posterior side, but then when you get to the lateral side, then you can access more of it. But when you're getting posterior, you're kind of having to like feel under, so like probably right here, feel gluteus medius, gluteus maximus might be covering some of this portion, and then here in the anterior portion it says that the tensor fascia latae, which is the fascia connective tissue over that part, kind of makes it hard to palpate sometimes. So discerning the posterior fibers from the more superficial gluteus maximus is difficult, right? Because the maximus is kind of covering it. Palpating and discerning the gluteus minimus deep to the gluteus medius is also difficult because it's like the deepest muscle. Well, you've got layers of muscles, right? So you don't just have like one muscle, and then they're not side by side. There's like gluteus maximus on the outside, and then a little bit deeper in is gluteus medius, a little deeper in, a little bit sideways, and then underneath that is the gluteus minimus. The gluteus minimus is thickest anteriorly. So yeah, I've been able to feel when I'm working on people's glutes, I definitely can feel the tension there. I've had like really good success with working on people's glutes though, to help release pain and tension in their hips, and then also at times it translates down into their thighs. Okay. The forgotten muscles. For the past few years, I've grown used to virtually every food product, from high fructose beverages to bacon, proudly proclaiming gluten-free. However, I never thought the day would come when the relatively new phenomenon of glute-free massage would be an accepted practice. Simply put, I feel that neglecting to work on an area as important as the gluteals is a great disservice to our clients. Working on the gluteals should not be confined to just clinical therapeutic work. It should also be included in any full body massage as a way to integrate the important connection, energetically and structurally, between the client's lower and upper body. Let's look at some of the kinesiology, anatomy, and therapeutic issues of the gluteals to understand why practicing a glute-free massage can be a detriment to your client. Addressing the posterior pelvis. Not only is strengthening the gluteal muscles important, relaxing and aligning these muscles through bodywork is also crucial and should be part of any session. Any strong, functional muscle has the potential to be tight and restrictive. It seems worse than unwise to shy away from working on such an important group of muscles as the gluteals because of misplaced concern and unsubstantiated projection over client modesty. Yeah, when I get a massage, I'm not modest because I'm like, hey, I've got a body. Surprise! Oh my goodness, I have a butt. Oh my goodness, I have muscles there. Can you please work them? Thank you. Yeah, good client education and proper language can help you jump that hurdle. Quite simply, the gluteal muscles should not be ignored. Let me list a few things that demonstrate the importance of this area and why, as therapists, we need to relax, align, and provide left and right balance to the posterior pelvis. So you're not just connecting when you're massaging, right? Part of the integrative work of massage is like what he said, Art Riggs. Sometimes you're gonna massage the back, right, the upper back, and then you're gonna massage the legs, and then like pretend like that portion of their body just doesn't exist. And that a lot of times, one benefit and one purpose, your purpose for going to get a massage could be that you're needing to feel cohesive, right? Sometimes people are like super tense up here, and then they're completely unaware of what's happening in their lower body for whatever reason. It could be trauma, it could be that they, I don't know, who knows, maybe they're like working out their upper body more, they're using this more, so they're feeling it more, and there's more tension, so they're aware of it, and then like their brain kind of is ignoring the lower part of their body, or vice versa. We'll say if you're like hiking all the time or playing a leg, most sports activate the legs mostly. I don't know, but if you're activating your legs more and you're more aware of your legs and then kind of just like unaware of like what's going on in your body, part of massage is to try to integrate the whole body as a whole so that you can be aware of how it's working together, right? So you just like move your arms. So when I'm moving my arm, my whole body is moving actually. Like my feet aren't moving so much, right, or my lower limbs, but I'm moving, and that movement is actually moving my abs, which is moving a little bit on my hips even, and then that would be attached to my glutes, right? So ideally, as humans, we're going to have like an integrated body, integrated soul to your body, soul, spirit, mind, heart, emotions, all of that would be integrated. But a lot of times when people are unhealthy or experiencing dis-ease, not necessarily physical, it could be because we're fragmented. Part of massage is to help to bring cohesion to that, is what he's talking about. Not just upper and lower, but also cohesion to left and right. Like sometimes people's left side or right side is stronger, and they're like so right side dominant that their left side is like super weak, right? Or vice versa. If you get an injury on one side and then you like favor the other, then you're gonna cause damage there. If laterally there's a difference in how much we're using or stretching or strengthening or whatever. So part of massage is to bring a balance and alignment to all of that. A major goal of all body work should be to provide a smooth transition and freedom of movement between the major body segments. People are not segmented. A lot of times we try to live like that. Our body, right? People just try to like lift all the time with their arms, and that's like when people get injured, right? Because they're not using their legs when they're lifting. They think they're just lifting from here. We use the whole body. We want the legs to swing freely from the pelvis, and the pelvis to have a fluid connection to the low back. All the posterior pelvic muscles affect this transition. The rotators also have a huge effect on the rotation of the femur, which can have a profound influence on knee torsion and foot inversion or eversion. Interesting. The tensor fasciae latae is an underworked muscle that, although it originates from the anterior pelvis, is easily accessed in a prone position while working on the gluteals. That's interesting because the anterior, which means in the front, anterior pelvis originates, but you can access it when they're laying face down. The tensor fasciae latae is always involved in iliotibial band tightness and in torsion of the femur and knee if its borders are pulled either anteriorly or posteriorly. Interesting, maybe that's why I was having trouble. I was doing some ballet like stretches, plies, and all that, and I was having a hard time having my knee come like this. It just wanted to go right here. I'm like, no, you can go here. But it wasn't wanting to, so maybe that's TFL for me. Okay. So the tensor fasciae latae, TFL, is always involved in iliotibial band tightness, IT band, that's not the lateral. That comes from your knee to your femur. And in torsion of the femur and knee if its borders are pulled either anterior or posterior. Virtually all those who participate in athletics, dance, yoga, Pilates, and other physical pursuits, along with the sedentary population, complain of iliotibial band tenderness and tightness. Although most anatomy descriptions emphasize the TFL as the attachment to the IT band, look at the distal attachments of fibers of the gluteus maximus to the posterior border of the IT band and how that will pull the band posterior and cause IT band tightness and tracking problems in the legs. Interesting. So he's saying like the glutes, I'm translating from me to it. The glutes, if the gluteus maximus is tight, the distal attachment of fibers, the borders, the IT band, and sometimes it can pull the band posterior towards the rear rather than having it be lateral. It can be getting pulled, and that can cause IT band tightness and then tracking problems in the legs, so the knee, and like we're having problems with, what was he saying, torsion in the femur and knees. Any work to provide release and balance to the IT band should include general work to relax the gluteus maximus and also precise work at its lower attachment to release this muscle's tendency to misalign the band. So this is great. I've done this work before, but I didn't know exactly why, because I've worked on the glutes, but not specifically to loosen its torsion or its pull on the IT band. So you can see in here, I'll show the picture. I'm not teaching a class, I don't know why I'm trying to teach, but I'm a teacher by nature. So he's saying if the glutes right here, the gluteus maximus, it's having the insertion, right? The origin's here, but the insertion is along down here, where it's attaching to the IT band. And if it's tight here, it would be pulling this way and pulling the IT band. So you want to release tension here, so this will release, and this can go back to where it's originally supposed to be. Okay. For low back pain, the posterior pelvis is a gold mine for relief. An imbalance in the gluteal muscles causes a rotation of the pelvis that generates a twist of the spine as a cause of or compensation for back pain. I actually see this with people, like, I had a guy that came in on Monday, and I think he was experiencing that. You can kind of tell because he was like slouched over like this. This hip is way higher and off balanced. Looks like a tracking problem, but it's also can be rotation of the pelvis, right? Twisting the spine. Especially for people with acute low back pain, it is often safest to stay away from the epicenter of pain and the lumbar vertebrae. So you don't want to work where the pain is emanating from. But almost all clients will feel relief from gluteal work, especially when you pay particular attention to left-right balance. So that's why it's important to see, like, a lot of times, like when I was receiving glute work, I wouldn't have pain necessarily all the time on one side. I would have pain on one side, but they would still work on the other side. And I thought it was kind of weird because I'm like, well, pain's not there. But ideally, there's going to be balance, releasing, making sure that the muscles, because sometimes the muscle that's tight isn't going to be the one that's in pain. It could be pulling on the left side and causing pain on the right side, and right, you feel like, oh my gosh, all the pain's here, but that's not necessarily what's causing the pain on the right side. It could be like needing to release on this side, and then the pain will subside because it won't be pulling, or just different things like that. So that's why there's a saying, where the pain is, not always where the problem is. It works in the body, but I think it's also true about life. Sometimes when we're experiencing pain, it's not always the problem. It's just that that's where we're feeling it. We're noticing it. So. Okay, look at the insertions, fiber direction, and depth of the gluteus medius and gluteus minimus compared to the gluteus maximus. These smaller muscles have very different function from the gluteus maximus and are often a factor in hip pain because of their attachment to the trochanter. Remember, the trochanter is on the femur. Their complex actions vary depending on hip and knee position. It's always hard for me, like, wait, is it flexing? Is it adducting? Is it abducting? Is it extending? Is it laterally turning? Is it medially? There's so much that goes on in that area, right? You can twist and turn your leg so many different ways, all these different movements and stuff, and it's like a lot of that is from it's performed by the gluteus medius and gluteus minimus. I'm like glowing. I'm a dork. Hopefully whoever's listening to this is getting a kick out of my goofiness. Okay. Their complex actions vary depending on knee and hip position. They require different strategies than the gluteus maximus. There's some disagreement on the gluteus medius's and the gluteus minimus's rotational role. That's what I was trying to figure out. The rotational role for the femur, depending on hip flexion and extension. But there's general agreement that they are primary internal rotators to counter the force of the external rotators. It's basically keeping your leg like this when the force would be doing this. Interesting. Okay. These smaller gluteal muscles are most important for their action of abduction, moving away from the body, particularly in stabilizing the leg to remain directly under the pelvis, preventing left-right pelvic deviation during the single support phase of walking or running. So if you've got problems with like your feet being more like this or like this, it could be a gluteus minimus issue, actually, is what it's saying. The gluteus maximus originates from the iliac crest and the lateral border of the posterior sacrum all the way down to the coccyx. You work in creating right-left balance and relaxing the fibrous attachments at the sacrum can be very helpful in relieving sacroiliac issues. The deep rotators are, of course, extremely important for their role of externally rotating the femur and are often tight and overworked in sports that require rotation, such as golf, tennis, and baseball. In addition, so he's talking about deep rotators. That's her name now. Working on rotators, external rotation of the femur. Yeah, golf, tennis, and baseball. In addition, the deep rotators stabilize the leg in walking and work in tandem with the internal rotators to keep legs and knees tracking well, right? So you want your leg to be straight, you don't want it to be off like this. All therapists should be able to precisely work on these muscles by sinking through the gluteus maximus. So those are deep. So it says deep rotators. They're deep too, so they're underneath the gluteus maximus muscle. Sciatica is one of the most common complaints massage therapists and body workers encounter. Although sciatic pain is a complex condition with multiple causes, work on the posterior pelvis is almost always beneficial, especially when it's focused on relaxation of the piriformis. Remember that muscle I told you about? It's lateral. It originates within the sacrum and then attaches laterally. Attaches to the sacrum. It's also important to address this muscle with any sacroiliac problem. Let's not forget fascial connections that cross from the legs, go across the gluteal region, and travel up the back all the way to the skull. Leaving a hole in this sheet of fascial tissue is counterproductive to a client's balance. Last but not least, work on the gluteal region just plain feels great. It does. I feel like it's one of those things again, like where you're like learning, like, oh my gosh, I have a body. Like, oh my gosh, everyone has a body. So it's totally okay. But like, oh, you're touching my butt. Oh, wait a minute, you have a butt. Like, let's like take the taboo out of it. It's not taboo to, it's just not. Physical touch is so not taboo. Um, there's so much that is like hyper sexualized when it's not sexual at all. It's a therapy, or it can just be like normal contact. Like we were talking, like what I was saying before earlier, like in the Asian countries where they like hold hands or they link arms, and it's like, oh my gosh, they're touching each other. Like, yeah, totally okay. I think, yeah, our culture as general highly sexualizes any physical touch. So then when we like see people touching, we're like automatically like, oh my gosh. When I think we should just normalize human contact and physical touch, and then like keep the things that are sexual in their place, but don't sexualize everything, because then people are missing out on healthy human contact. And like what this is saying too, people are like missing out on like good massage therapy work, integrative body work, because somehow glutes became just a sexual thing. They're not just a sexual thing. Like he's saying, our glutes are working all the time. Your glutes are working all the time. It's not just when you have sex that you like pull your glutes out and like here you go. So like a sexual object and then you put them away. No, like they're like sustaining our bodies and our structure. Well, not our structure, but our like however you want to call it, like how our posture and everything, how we our gait. So much. Like when you're playing golf, you're using your glutes. Golf's not a sexual activity, right? And when you're playing baseball or when you're doing tennis, you're using your glutes. When you're walking, you're using your glutes. So like the ridiculousness of what they're talking about, like fearing like this is going to become a like sexualized thing if you're working on someone's glutes, is just, it's silly, because it's a part of our human anatomy that like is necessary for everything that we're doing basically.